Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert, alongside Father Joe Grimaldi. You know him, you love him. Let's put our hands together and welcome Father Joe back to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. Friends of the Father Joe podcast know that the COVID world we now live in is constantly changing. One of the great success stories to adapt, provide, and serve, well, that's our friends at Starlink, and I encourage you to start the process by simply going to www.starlinking.com. It's right there. Check out the new vehicle inventory, and what an inventory it is. Oh, by the way, our certified pre-owned vehicles, well, they're abundant and in near-perfect condition. Our award-winning service department remains by appointment only, but they're open from 8 until 6 p.m. However, we're now accepting walk-ins for new vehicle sales, and those hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I have to tell you, as a Star customer for 2 decades, I have never seen a stronger lineup of new vehicles. 248-354-4900, 248-354-4900. Star Lincoln, located right there on 12 Mile Road, just east of Telegraph, home of the Star treatment. Well, not long ago, while we were doing a podcast, I happened to see this come across the wire. On October 20th, 2020, during the filming of the documentary Francesco, Pope Francis has called for the creation of civil union laws, giving his clearest support to date for the rights of same-sex couples while breaking from the official teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. In Francesco, a documentary that touches on several of the Pope's trademark issues, from migration to the environment, Francis does not indicate any openness to extending marriage to same-sex couples, but says homosexuals have the right to be a part of the family. They're children of God and have a right to a family. The Pope says in his interview with the filmmaker, no one should be thrown out or be made miserable because of it. Your thoughts, Father Grimaldi?
Well, basically, it's only the exciting news that thrills people. And they take sentences and words out of context. For example, I think a very prominent word in what Francis was saying is family. He doesn't want gay people to be ousted by their families, which happens often when people don't understand. And I always love to tell people that if they have a son or a daughter who is gay, that's your flesh and blood. You don't abandon them. They're still part of the family, and you embrace them. You just don't say, well, you're not my child anymore. I want you out of here. Don't ever come near here. Don't ever give people the suspicion that you are part of this family. Well, that's not what Francis wants, okay? He's got compassion. He's got love for the people who need family. And I think when a family member is in that situation, he or she should really be embraced by the rest of the family. So when he speaks about the family, I think that's what he's referring to, not the family of a husband and wife and child. Now, why does he use the word civil union? Well, because he wants them to have all the rights that anyone else would have, financially, legally, whichever way you want to term it. So he says they should have all the rights that they're human beings, and they should be treated like all human beings. So I think this is one of the things that was misinterpreted when the idea of family was brought about by Francis. So literally, the law of civil cohabitation, but very often is commonly called a civil union. But he wants to make sure that they are part of that. He says that they are children of God and have a right to a family. Nobody should be thrown out or be made miserable over it. What we have to create is a civil union law. That way they are legally covered. So anyway, that's what Francis was trying to do, is giving them all of the rights that any human being would have, created in the image of Jesus Christ and the image of God, actually. So basically, remember not that many years ago, 2 years ago, the Pope was responding to a journalist who had asked him if he would say to a father whose son or daughter tells him that he or she is gay. On the plane returning from Ireland, he had responded, I would tell him first of all to pray. Do not condemn, but dialogue. Understand. Make room for this son or daughter of yours. Don't throw them out. That's not the way to handle it. Okay, you might be shocked by it, but if you truly dialogue, back and forth conversation, maybe you'll get to understand where they're coming from. My understanding is this. I know they have groups like Courage, and I'm not going to get into any debate with people that believe in that, but I think the Medical Association has said that courage does not work, okay, because it is a natural inclination that someone is born with. So it's not something that you can change a person. It just doesn't work that way. He says homosexual persons have a right to be in the family, and the parents have a right to recognize his son or daughter is homosexual. Nobody should be thrown out. Again, he's not specifying a religious law. He separates what's religious and what's civil. When he speaks about civil union, he's talking about that they have the rights to survive like anyone else. I'll tell you a story that I was involved with at one time. These two gentlemen owned a home, and they were both practicing Catholics. And they would come to Mass, they would receive communion, and they did a lot of work for the church. And someone said, well, these two are homosexuals. How can you give them communion? Well, the thing is this. Who knows for sure what goes on in the bedroom? Huh? Mm-hmm. If that is not explicit, the priest won't refuse communion. Heterosexual couples are also asked not to participate in the sacraments if they are living together. Well, it's somehow, with heterosexual couples, people are much more accepting of that than they are with the homosexual couples. Once again, I think people have to have dialogues to see what they can come up with that would be good for them and for us. So, it's not something we can dismiss easily.
I agree. And there's no doubt that within the ranks of the many churches that you have worked at and worked for, you're certainly serving communion to a gay person. Knowing you as well as I do, and knowing you as more of a friend than, well, no, I shouldn't say that. I know the many dimensions of you, but I consider you to be a very, very good friend, and I consider you to be as open-minded as any human on the planet, which I think is really important, especially in 2020, especially in your role as a Catholic priest, a retired Catholic priest.
Right.
As I smile saying that. There is no looking back. I mean, here, I'll make it simple. I think that people realize at a certain age that they are more inclined to be favoring a different sex.
Sure, yeah.
Who knows what goes on inside the body at that particular time when the hormones are divvied up or whichever path, left or right, they may go. Was it a male born in a female shell? Was it a female born in a male shell? We don't know. But I believe that these people are genuinely companions and very much in love. And I can't challenge that. I can't. To which you say,
I certainly agree with you. There's no way that we can challenge that. However, when you speak about, is the Holy Father stating that all of a sudden the church is approving of homosexual marriage? No, because he still maintains it's between a man and a woman. So he does not go against that at all. So he says it should not be called marriage. Maybe a civil union might be a better way to describe it.
But it's not going to happen inside a Catholic church. A civil union will not occur.
He's not, okay. Maybe the terminology is wrong. Civil union, we're not speaking necessarily of what sometimes is looked upon as a marriage, because it's a marriage that takes place in a courtroom. Well, it's the idea that these people now have a right, like anybody else, to any benefits that are due to them.
And I have no objection to that.
And I think, it's a thing that Francis is separating the religious from the civil world.
Correct.
And so
I agree.
That's all he's doing. If you take the words out of context, well, it's easy to misinterpret what he says.
It made for great headlines, let's put it that way. But I would like to do a deeper dive on this. And I'm wondering, as well, as I've asked you this before, I suspect parishioners may bring it up to you out in the lobby after Mass, or maybe other priests have brought it up during the homily.
I think what the priests have tried to do, hopefully they are successful at it, is to try to make sure people don't misinterpret what the Pope is saying.
Yeah.
Now, it's still going to come out as, well, what else could it be? It's a civil union. Well, a civil union is really the idea of a person being safeguarding his rights like anybody else.
Let me ask you a pure hypothetical.
Sure.
What if a gay couple left the Catholic Church, $10 million, a certain church? Would they say, no, we can't take it? We cannot accept it. You're a gay couple.
Whether it's a Catholic church or any other beneficiary, if they're giving the money without strings attached, I don't see why not. Now, I think what you're getting at, can my marriage be now accepted by the church?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
there's no reason why they shouldn't accept it.
Okay. Can you see where outsiders may say hypocrite, hypocrite, hypocrite?
Definitely.
Okay.
But again, it's one of these things, unless you're in the situation, you don't know what's happening. If someone so loves the Catholic Church, and there are many gay people that do, obviously we already discussed the idea of dignity a while back, but there are many gay people that love the Catholic Church, want to be part of it. They would like to be more closely involved with it. If they have a lot of money and they want to contribute to the church, I don't see what the problem is there. Now, if there are strings attached, no, we shouldn't accept the money.
In other words, if somebody were to donate $10 million, saying specifically donated for the church to investigate the reality of accepting gay marriage, that's strings attached.
Yeah. If a person says, I want to give the church this much money because I love the church.
I love the church.
Let them give the money.
Okay. And again, I'm second time around. Let's see what happens. What happens when people say, oh, look at you bunch of holier-than-thou hypocrites? To which you say,
thus was always and is always the case. I mean, people say that right now about different things that happen in the church. And if they were truly able to investigate, they would find that, well, I don't know what percentage, but most would be true to the faith. There are priests, there are, just like anybody else, they're human beings. There are some who will go outside of the church's limits. There's no question. And so if we want to concentrate on that small percentage, well, that's when you're going to be called a hypocrite. But for the most part, that doesn't happen, at least that I know of. Let me put it this way. Most part, I think people are trying to do the right thing. They try to give the right example, but sometimes it could be misinterpreted.
Very quickly, and then we can say a prayer together, you and I. Would you say people are more accepting of civil unions now than they were 10 years ago?
Oh, definitely, because, homosexuality for many years was the forbidden word. You should never use it, huh? And in the old days, everybody knew, not everybody, a lot of people knew that this couple, these two women who were adopting children, or these two men, but nobody said anything. It was very quiet. But now people talk about these things. I mean, that's not shocking when you hear it on the news anymore. It used to be something that was horrible and shocking, but now it seems to be something they've heard before.
We're making strides.
I think so.
I think so. How about a prayer?
Let us pray. Father, please hear us when we tell you of our concerns. Know that we are striving to make all of the right decisions and need your love and power to help us overcome any difficulties. Please watch over everyone as times and routines are about to change once again. We know that we can do anything through you, so please help us to ensure health and semi-normalcy in the coming months. We give our hearts to you, now and forever. Amen. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
We'd like to remind you to share the Father Joe Podcast with your friends. You can reach Father Joe at frjoepodcast@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook or say, Alexa, play the Father Joe Podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time.